like that up here.
What he left.
Right.
Yeah. Let me write him. I'll write him
Okay.
and I'll tell him that.
Okay, yeah, do that. It says it's streaming now. So shalom to the brothers and sisters. Although we're looking at what appears to be an empty school, somebody's there, or else the camera wouldn't be running. But last week we were breaking down the book of Acts chapter 10. A new brother there in Texas had asked the question about the nationality, right, of Cornelius, the centurion of Acts chapter 10. So we were answering that question, and one of the last things, maybe not the last thing, but one of the last areas that we were dealing with in proving that that Cornelius, in other words, was an Israelite, is by understanding what was being said of him. So we started off clearly at chapter 10 and verse 1, and we went through the process of using the Bible to define the words that were used to describe Cornelius, and showing, although we know what those words mean in the English language, devout, right? One that feared the Lord. We use the Bible to define that and help us to understand what that was telling us outside of, or beyond, not outside, but beyond what the word means in the English language. Like when the scriptures say devout, I would generally know what devout means, but devout by the Most High standard and by his definition is something that's measured by him and his standard, not by what the word means in the English language or any other language. And so devout, every description that we read was measuring, or I should say it like this, every word used to make that assessment of Cornelius was every word was tied to fulfilling and obedience to, adherence to the law. So this is how we knew. And then we found out when the angel came and said, the Lord, thy prayer has come up before the Lord, before the Most High. And he was in Caesarea, dispatched to Caesarea from Italy. Well, no, we wasn't in no temple. You understand? So in other words, we went through and read those verses about how the Most High hears the prayers of the saints. And people think that the Lord is sitting up here hearing everybody's prayer. When I say here, I don't mean, in other words, if I say the Most High doesn't or only hears the prayers of the saints, I'm not saying that the Most High, the nature, the omnipresent, the omnipotent nature of the Most High doesn't see and hear everything, meaning the other nations, because he does. But we're talking about that communication between the Heavenly Father that people have been led to believe that they have through this practice called prayer. All nations, that doesn't exist. And that's what we went through the scriptures to read. So a brother wrote me either that night or the following morning, and asked the question that I want to answer right now. The question was based on, and it was behind that statement. It was behind having read the verses that show the prayers of the saints are the ones that make it before the Most High, because the angels themselves present the prayers poured from golden vials, right? In the form of odors to the Most High. And so we showed why, because our prayer was always performed at the hour of the burning of incense. So the brother asked the question. His question was basically, what about 1 Kings? Go here, Amayetazah. Go to 1 Kings. What about 1 Kings chapter 8 and verses 41 through 43? And that's a great question. Now, I'm going to answer the question as well as I can, but Well, let's first read it. It opens segue to an independent topic of itself. And that is, it's a question actually. Hey, listen, is Yohanada still there? Okay. It goes back to a couple of years ago, Yohanada, in his transient period there, will ask me a question about the strangers, meaning the non-Israelites. And so I had put together a class about the law of the strangers, meaning the law of the non-Israelites. And so that's what this brother's question falls under. But I'm going to ask, so first, in order to know what he's asking, let's read that, Amayetazah. Read it loud, please. Read 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 41 through 43.
1 Kings chapter 8, verse 41. Moreover, concerning the stranger that is not of thy people Israel, but cometh out of a far country for thy name's sake, for they shall hear of thy great name, and of thy strong hand, and of thy stretched out arm, when he shall come and pray toward his house. Hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all people of the earth may know thy name, to fear thee, as do thy people Israel, and that they may know that this house which I have builded is called by thy name.
Right. So the question basically, the question was, what about this? And he wrote the verse. So the question really is, if the Most High only hears the prayers of the saints, which are the Israelites, what about that? And so that question is, the verses are under the condition that the nations or that the strangers fulfill that. For instance, let's say Moab or even Esau praying in Christianity. Is the Most High hearing him? Hell no, because Christianity is just today's most popular form of Babylonian cult idolatry. You understand? So in other words, when the nations, Solomon was telling you right there, if they come. Now, that's why I said this is a topic in and of itself, but I wanted to address it. In other words, the question is, under what condition are the prayers of the strangers, or are the prayers of the strangers, the non-Israelites, are heard and granted by the Most High? That's under what? Under obedience to the Most High. And I'm going to take enough time to show that. So let's do this. Let's start off with, because I'm answering that question before we actually move on, into the Acts thing, because it was part of what the brother asked. So I want to use a couple of verses in Exodus to show what the strangers among us had to fulfill. They were an extension, and then on another occasion, as a matter of fact, let me do it like this, because I'm supposed to, when I finish with Acts chapter 10, brothers have asked questions. I'm supposed to do Romans chapter 11, but I'm actually, so that I can, because I don't like having half done questions or half done topics. In other words, brother asked the question, I want to make sure he understands it. But for now, I want you to go to Exodus chapter 12. And we're going to read some of these holidays, these high holy days that the Most High taught us coming out of Egypt. And listen to what he says, Exodus chapter 12. Listen to what he says about the presence of the strangers and what was required of them among us. This ain't talking about just any old person. You read, first of all, read that again. Read some of the conditions of the stranger being listened to or heard by the Most High and attended is written in the very same. Because what is this? What was it that we read? We just read 3 verses, 41, 42, 43, out of Solomon's prayer of dedicating the temple that he had just finished constructing. Chapter 7, he builds the temple. Chapter 8, he's consecrating, dedicating the temple, and it is done through many other things, a prayer. So now the more we know about this temple, the more we understand in what capacity the stranger's prayers will be heard. Not even, listen, even Israel, anything done in the temple went through who? Everybody? It went through the priests, the Levites. You couldn't sacrifice nothing on your own. That's what, listen, that was Saul's first strike, sacrificing to the Most High. Samuel told him to wait here, and 7 days I'm gonna go such and such, and when I come back, I'm gonna sacrifice for you, and then you can make your supplication to the Lord. This was during the time of us going back and forth in war with the Philistines in the era when Saul and his son Jonathan were being used as the saviors. Saul, talking about of Benjamin, the first king, could not wait. The appointed time that the prophet Samuel mentioned to Saul had come, and Saul hadn't arrived. And guess what happened? Samuel hadn't arrived. Saul decided to go and make the sacrifice, and the Most High was displeased. As soon as he had finished doing that, Samuel, the prophet, got there and said, "What did you do? You were supposed to wait for me." And then right at that moment, he said, "You know what? The Most High is not pleased with you. He done took the kingdom from you already and found somebody else." He said the Lord was looking to set you up and set your throne and your kingdom up forever. That's what he told him. But because you have did this thing, he said, now the Lord has chosen somebody who will perform all of his will. He was already talking about David. Why? Because Saul went to entreat the Most High, and he wasn't the one to do that. He wanted to pray to the Most High to know what to do against the Philistines. That's a prayer. A supplication is a prayer. But Saul had to wait for Samuel, the prophet, to do the sacrifice on his behalf. You understand? Now, that said, go ahead and read verses 41 through 43 again on the exercise. 1 Kings chapter 8. Are you muted? Yes, you are.
Sorry.
Go ahead and begin.
1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 41. Moreover, concerning the stranger that is not of thy people Israel, but cometh out of a far country for thy name's sake, for they shall hear of thy great name.
He's coming out of a far country for what reason? For thy name's sake. Meaning he didn't heard about the greatness of the Most High. This is what the Most High wants. This is what he told Pharaoh. He said, I've raised you up to tear you down, and that my name may be declared throughout all the world. That's what the Most High wants. That's why I said we're going to actually do a topic on that. We're going to do a topic on the law of the stranger. In Israel, of course, I guess old school Israel going to be mad at me because I'm going to go into the book and show you what attitude we're supposed to have with the strangers and the non-Israelites among us. Like, we're not supposed to be running around here operating out of just sheer hatred. Act like the white man this and the that. Brother, the only reason any of them have power over us is because of the sin that we did. No. The Most High used them to punish us. Simple and plain. So now, what is our attitude supposed to be with those that are in peace with us? What is our attitude? What is our treatment supposed to be? First of all, we're teachers. If we're teachers, then we're ambassadors of Christ. Then he comes first, not you. The first thing the nation's supposed to know is about him, not you. And that's the topic. That's what I said. We ain't gonna make this wait. I'm gonna answer the brother's question. I'm gonna continue, but I'm gonna actually, once I finish with Acts chapter 10, I'm gonna go to the law of the stranger and show that. And show what the salvation process, where it has, while Israel is being saved, there are nations that are not Israelites, and I'm not even speaking only of Isaiah chapter 14. I'm speaking of Isaiah 56, where the Most High said, aside from the Israelites that he's going to gather, there's going to be others, and it says who are not Israelites. It says who are strangers. But they observe his Sabbath, and they love his name, and they serve us. I get that. You understand? Now, in other words, so their prayers are heard only when they what? When they submit to the Most High. And what have the Most High turned them to? What have the Most High endeared them to? The Most High have endeared them to serving us. That's their faith. You got Edomites and Arabs and other people on YouTube putting up clips saying, you know, the black people in America are the true Jews, and we only have salvation through them. And they're right, if the Most High want them specifically. So go ahead, Amayetas. I'm sorry. Verse 41 again.
1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 41. Moreover, concerning a stranger that is not of thy people Israel, but cometh out of a far country for thy name's sake, for they shall hear of thy great name, and of thy strong hand, and of thy stretched out arm, when he shall come and pray toward this house.
So first
Hear
of
thou
all,
in
this
heaven.
ain't no any old stranger. This stranger is specifically coming with the intention, have heard about the Most High, and is coming to observe and what? And to adore the Most High. Hell, even Alexander the Great did that. It says those words, that he adored the name of the Most High and the power that had given Jaddua, who was the priest when he came upon the city of Jerusalem. Jaddua, he said, he had a bunch, all of his hosts, Babylonians, Syrians, everybody was like, what the hell are you doing? When you have caused all nations to adore you, how is it that you come to adore these people? He said, I did not adore them. He said, I adored the name of their God and the God that honored this man with his high priesthood. Then he told how he saw the very thing that was unfolding before them in that moment in a dream while he was back in a place called Theos, waiting to wondering how would he or not be successful in conquering Darius the Persian. That was the Most High communicating with him there so that he could show Israel mercy in his conquering spree. Gracias, amigo. Go ahead, I'll continue to read. What verse are you on?
Verse 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 43.
Go ahead.
Hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all people of the earth may know thy name, to fear thee, as do thy people Israel, and that they may know that this house which I've builded is called by thy name.
Yeah, man, so he's clearly telling us that if a nation comes with the intention of adoring it, then what is that stranger's petition? Something along the lines that pleases the Most High. That's what he's telling you. But I want to show you that's not where it started at. It started when we first came out of Egypt. So go to chapter 12 of Exodus. And I think I want to start off at verse 18. It's talking about the Passover. Read on down.
Exodus chapter 12 and verse 18. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even, ye shall eat unleavened bread unto the 21st day of the month at even. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses. For whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land.
Right. Go ahead. Verse 20.
For 20, you shall eat nothing leavened. In all your habitations shall you eat unleavened bread.
Now, what is that telling us? The heathen or the stranger in our land was subject to our laws as well. We're gonna read a little bit more. That means if we couldn't eat unleavened bread during that period, then neither could a stranger, whether he was passing through or born there. We're going to stay in this chapter and jump down to verse 45. Jump down to verse 40 through 45.
Verse 14. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in Egypt, was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt.
Now don't forget, we already studied this, and when it says the 430 years, we found out that that was a combination of 215 years of the Hebrew presence between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the land of Canaan, which belonged to the kingdom of Egypt during the life of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then the second half of 215 years was spent with Jacob, Joseph, all of his brothers, and the 70 souls that entered in. Now it says 70 souls that came out of Jacob's loins, but we also had all of our manservants, maidservants, and cattle and everything inherited from the time of Abraham. Those that lived at the time went down into Egypt with us. We didn't just take 70 people and leave everything else, leave all of our servants that had been born unto us from the time of Abraham, that Isaac inherited, and all the ones that were born and inherited during in Isaac's that Jacob inherited. But it's talking about the sons and daughters of Israel. There were 70 people that came out of Israel's loins that went into Egypt. And from that point, that would be another 215 years spent in Egypt proper, the land of Goshen. That's what the 430 years is. 215 in the land of Canaan, Egypt's northernmost region, northernmost province, and 215 years in Goshen. And then the Most High brought us out. Go ahead, Amayetazal.
Exodus chapter 12 and verse 42. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations.
Go ahead.
Verse 43. And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. But every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof.
Right. Go ahead.
Verse 45. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof.
So what does that mean? When it says a foreigner and a hired servant, what's the difference between a foreigner and a stranger when they both are not Israelites? The stranger has joined himself unto Israel, and you know that because he just told you what happened. He's been circumcised. But every man's servant that is bought for money, that's a stranger, because there's also laws within this chapter, not this chapter, this book, where the Most High shows us that we can't have a Hebrew under bondage. He says, the stranger, thou shalt not serve or cause thy brother to serve with rigor. You understand? We're not supposed to have brothers, Israelites as bondmen. He said, the stranger that sojourneth among you, he shall be a servant. So this person is non-Israelite, but he done made himself ours and he's circumcised. It says it's a hired servant, right? But every man's servant that is bought for money, that's called property. When thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. He could do the Passover. But the foreigner and a hired servant, they're what? They can't, because why? Because they're passing through their transit and they haven't given themselves to Israel. So they're not recognized among us. We're going to continue to read. You see that? So in other words, that's the person also who among us whose prayer wouldn't be heard. It's the person who's more likely, hey, shalom, brothers. It's the person who's more likely to not adhere to the laws and end up getting killed in the land of Israel. Because you know the Most High said that was against the law. You couldn't be in our land and having other observances. We're getting back into Acts chapter 10, But last week, so that you know, Adam, another brother from listening in online asked a question. The last point that we were making was in order improving that Cornelius was an Israelite was from the angle of the prayers that make it up to the Most High are only those of the saints. So brother wrote and asked a question concerning 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 41 through 43, where Solomon, in praying, in consecrating the temple, Solomon asked the Heavenly Father that if a stranger that is not of thy seed come and hear about you and want to know more about you, if he come and put himself toward this temple and pray, then that you hear him. So we're explaining that now. The circumstance, and so where we are now, we're in Exodus. In order to answer the question that was posed from 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 41 through 43, we're in Exodus chapter 12, and we started off, we read first about verse 18 through 20, and now we're reading verses, I said 40 through 45, but we're actually going to read 40 through 40. We're going to read 40 through 49. All right, and we are on verse 44. So what we're doing is we're reading briefly the circumstance under which a stranger's prayer would be heard, and that is if he didn't given himself over to Israel as a servant, and by extension is operating under the laws. That's what we're reading. He has to keep all the laws that Israel has to keep. But the foreigner and the person that's hired that haven't committed himself, given himself through payment or whatever, to us, he can't either the Passover, the Most High, in other words, they can't do, which means once again, their prayers ain't gonna be heard. He's not circumcised. The only people whose prayers the Most High heard in that circumcised state is us, because that was his intention, his punishment. He's the one that punished us because of our uncircumcised dealings. And we ended up spread all over the world. But that's another condition of the prayer. That's in 2 Kings chapter 8. If thy people go out to battle against a nation, whether far or near, and they fall in battle, and they get taken away captive, and they turn back to you from their sins in the land of their captivity, and they face the holy city, and they pray toward you, then you hear their prayer. We're the only people who the Most High will listen to in that what? In that uncircumcised state, when in our heart and mind we come back to the Heavenly Father, when we recognize what we done did. But the other nations, they got to come through us. They have to be taught by us the truth about the Most High. Then they can say, oh, wow, I want to serve the Most High. What do I have to do? Then we go through the scriptures and show them. Christ did not die for them. Christ died for us. He died for them. Okay, so we're on verse 44, Exodus chapter 12, verse 44. Go ahead, Amiyatazar. And then once I finish a couple of more verses from this, we're gonna pick up where we left off in Acts chapter 10. Go ahead, Amiyatazar.
Exodus chapter 12, verse 44. But every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof.
Go ahead.
A foreigner and an hired servant shall not eat thereof.
That means somebody that haven't what? Listen, this person is a foreigner, and so we were answering the question. Well, hell, if a stranger is not an Israelite, or if a stranger is a non-Israelite, then what's the difference between a stranger and a foreigner? The stranger being referred to is always talking about those that what? That's giving themselves to Israel. And that's why I said purchased with money. He can eat at the Passover. But the foreigner or the hired servant, in other words, somebody who I'm paying to just do a job, but he's in my land, but he's not mine. He haven't given himself or haven't purchased him. He can't eat of it. But now let's continue to read down. It's going to get clearer to verse 49. Go ahead, Amiyatazar, verse 46.
Verse 46. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house.
Now this
Neither
is
shall
talking
ye
about
break
the
a
actual
bone.
Passover lamb. This is talking about the actual Passover lamb. Go ahead.
Verse 46 from the top. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall you break a bone thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it.
Go ahead.
And when a stranger, verse 48, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised. And then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof.
So there you go. That person, that stranger, he done what? He's sojourning with us. He done circumcised himself. Let's not forget the circumstance of circumcision. That was given to us in what is it? Genesis 16, Genesis 17. When the Most High had Abraham said, every male that is born in thy house or that is bought with thy money. These cats are what? Strangers, they're servants. They're not foreigners in the sense of what? Aliens among us being what? Passing through, headed out somewhere else, or staying long enough just to work and get some money. These are cats that are among us now. They're going to live here. They're going to be a part of the structure and the permanent fixtures within the nation of Israel. They're going to be the nation's servants, depending on specifically who they belong to. Okay? These are the circumstances under which the foreigner's prayer was heard, but then even he would have to do what? He'd have to go to the priest in order for the Most High to hear him. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do a topic on this by a full study on this. We had to go, there was an hour of prayer. What happened at the hour of prayer in the temple? You read Ezekiel in Luke, Zacharias was the priest at the time before Christ was born. He had to burn the incense. Another priest's lot was what? To do the sacrifice. You had what you call the peace offering. You have what you call the sin offering. Those offerings, those offerings were what had to be performed by the priest on our behalf in order to be recognized by the Most High in the temple. Then we made our supplications. Of course, we prayed at home and honored the Most High. But when it came time to make a supplication to the Most High, the priests were the voice to the Most High. They represented the presence of Christ among us. So these strangers had to go through the same thing. And we're reading that now. Why? It's not, listen, read verse, what was that? That was verse 48. Read verse 49. Listen to what it says.
Verse 49. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you.
That means one law. That means in every capacity. You read the 10 Commandments, you read all the different laws. A stranger couldn't have land among us. Why? Why could not a stranger have land among Israel? Because that was Israel's inheritance, and the Most High wasn't going to give. Listen, it was like that with a sister. Let's say a man had all women, no sons. Those women, they would have to marry a man in their tribe. If they had brothers, they could marry a man in their tribe or out of their tribe. But if their father hadn't had any sons, they had to marry men within their tribe so that another tribe, another man from, let's say you in the land of Simeon, and the Simeonite brother has 7 daughters. All of his daughters have to marry a man from the tribe of Simeon, because if they marry a man from Judah or any place else, then that inheritance falls to that man, and Simeon has lost a portion of its lot allotted to that tribe. That's all in the scriptures. So a stranger wasn't going to have no land. He's property. But if he's following the law, then by extension of being what? By extension of belonging to an Israelite, then the Most High is going to hear his prayer, because he's being compelled to what? To follow the same laws that we are. That's why it says, there shall be, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, that's Israel, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Boom. And there's a few more, but I just kind of wanted to show that. Let me see. Go to chapter 20 real quick. Go to chapter 20. Same book, Exodus. This will be the last one so we can get back. Exodus chapter 20, and I want to read verses, where am I? Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11. Now this is like the 10 commandments and stuff, but in the midst of the 10 commandments, look what is interjected here. Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11.
Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that's within thy gates.
That's just further what? It's just further emphasizing that. Go ahead and finish. Well, let me just say this. That's verse 10. That's just further emphasizing that what? That whatever laws were kept, the strangers among us had to do. They were under our law. Go ahead, I'm gonna get this up. Verse 11.
Verse 11. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day.
Right.
Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it.
All right, go to chapter 23 and read verse 12, and then we're gonna get on back to what we got to get to. Go ahead. Chapter 23 and verse 12 of Exodus. Did you put yourself on mute, Amayatazah? Oh no, I can't hear you. Can y'all hear me? Okay, go ahead.
Exodus 23 and verse 12. 6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the seventh day thou shalt rest. And thine ox and thine ass may rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed.
Now, why does it say that? Because there are work pieces for us, that thine ox, then thine ass, and the son of thine handmaid, meaning the woman, the children of the women servants, and the stranger may be refreshed. So, like I said, we'll do a more exhaustive study on that, and basically it'll be titled the law of the stranger among Israel. Matter of fact, I will do one more, just to shake up shit a little bit. Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 1 and 2. Isaiah chapter 14 verses 1, 2, and 3. And then Isaiah chapter 56. That's what we're going to read. Isaiah chapter 14 verses 1, 2, and 3.
Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And they shall cleave to the house of Jacob.
Now, what I was going to say is, when do you think that's going to happen? That's going to start happening as soon as the Most High turns up the heat, intensifies the conditions of punishment of judgment against this nation, while simultaneously demonstrating who he is for. The time is going to come, sooner or later, that the Most High is going to afflict our oppressors to such degree that they're not going to be able to have anything. You got all of these cats prepping. You got all of these people making provisions. They know what's coming, but they don't know what's coming. Meaning they know the hell is coming, but they don't know salvation is on its way to a small demographic among them. And the Most High is going, yes.
They're to stay out there. They're stored on those provisions for us.
I can't hear you. I mean, I can hear you, but it's not legible.
Okay. Is it fair to say out that they're storing up those resources for us? Those provisions?
Well, listen, exactly. I don't know. I would like, I believe so, But it can, let me say this, let me explain this, because that's a good question. See, the Most High, the scriptures say we shall spoil them that spoiled us and rob those that robbed us. That's in Ezekiel chapter 39. But remember, as the Most High judges this place, he can either do that, but let me say this, how can they be storing stuff up for us? Now, this is my thinking, going with the scriptures. In other words, the Most High is going to plague our oppressors to such degree that whatever it is they would have done is not going to be enough for them. It's not going to save them. It's not going to even preserve them. So the factor that will cause them to cleave to us is the very same factor that is exercised in the animal kingdom. They're going to follow the food. When one section of the Serengeti gets hot and the water holes then dried up, all the animals go on the march and they start looking for the next place where the water is. They follow the food. That's what these nations are going to do, those who the Most High have destined. So he's going to plague this place to such a degree, and Israel is going to be catching hell. What the Most High referred to as Jacob's trouble. We're going to be catching hell. But the point, there will come a point within that judgment that the Most High will manifest who he is with, and it will be clear who he is with and who he is against. And of those that he is against, there will be some that recognize who he's with and go and cleave to them for the sake of survival. That's what you're going to see. That's how it's going to happen. Now I'm going to show you. And then the Most High is going to gather them as well. Those are the two verses that we're going to read. So I'm yet to say that was verse 1, right? Or verse 2.
Verse 1.
Okay, go ahead, read verse 2.
Isaiah 14 and verse 2. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them.
Go ahead.
And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors.
So now here's the question. If we're going to take them to our place and they serve us in the land of the Lord, where is it going to be that they will have cleaved to us? They will have cleaved to us before we get to the land. If we got to take them, because we ain't even in the land, where are they going to cleave to us? They're going to cleave to us in the place where the Most High shows mercy to Jacob and yet chooses us. That's going to be in the midst of all the hell. That's why it opened up saying what? For the Lord shall have mercy on Jacob and yet choose Israel. And the stranger shall cleave to him. So while people are catching hell, the Most High is going to show who he's being merciful to. And then from those places, the Most High is going to gather some of them with us. And that's in the scripture. Let's go to Isaiah 56. Isaiah chapter 56. I'll tell you the verse when I get there. We're going to read verses 1 through 8. Isaiah chapter 56, verses 1 through 8.
Isaiah 56 and verse 1. Thus saith the Lord, keep ye judgment and do justice, for my salvation is near to come, and my righteousness to be revealed.
Check that out.
Blessed is the man that doeth this, and the Son of Man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hand from doing any evil.
Now he's telling us in verse 1 that his salvation is on his way. The righteousness is about to be revealed. So while we're here, we're what? We're blessed if we're keeping the Sabbath and not doing any evil. Continue. This is talking about Israel. Read on down.
Verse 3. Neither let the son of the stranger that have joined himself to the Lord speak, saying, the Lord have utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree.
So there's two other demographics that's being addressed in verse 3. The first demographic is speaking of non-Israelites. It says, this is what the Most High do not want the stranger to think. Neither let the sons of the strangers that have joined himself to the Lord speak, saying, the Lord hath utterly separated me from his people. That means, listen, that's going to happen soon. I want to see you got these brothers out there. They know what, and they don't know all you going to, yeah, they all are going into slavery. But we aren't supposed to be out there teaching us. We're not supposed to be out there pushing our anger. Nigga, what you mad at? You sin. The Lord used them to punish you. You damn idolater. That's the truth. Listen, were we not doing idolatry? Not the book full of that. Ezekiel chapter 23, Ezekiel chapter 16, Ezekiel chapter 39. The Most High said, and the nations and the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity. So now that we're here and the Most High is bringing us back, brother, we're supposed to be shining. Christ is the light that's supposed to be shining through us. How do you know the Most High, and while this shit hit the fan, the brother just made a very good point. How do you know their substance while we waiting ain't gonna be converted to us? How do we know all these cats that's running around here doing all of this mad prepping that they hit the fan with such degree, or the Most High just speak to one of them and say, go, I want you to go talk, look to so-and-so, like Cornelius. Only difference is Cornelius is an Israelite. I want you to go find such and so and so and so, and you'll see him. He's working at a mall. His name is Adam. He will tell you these things that I want you to do. And what? You might not have even gotten nothing from the Most High, but by virtue of being ready, by virtue of having been prepared, you're going to know what to teach. But if you come up under the wrong teachers and the wrong teaching, you're going to be like, get the hell away from me, man. You're going down. Well, the Most High sent him you trying to put you in charge of his substance, so that what? His great substance that only what? For him and his one family, his wife and his kid, is enough to take care of 25 families. Because Esau got it like that. You guys know that. How do you know that? So we gotta, or David, you're gonna bump into somebody out there doing y'all moving or doing your routes. You got to be ready to work. That's why I said if we're ambassadors of Yahweh Shah, then it's his message we carry, not our own. That's what an ambassador is. You ain't out there speaking on behalf of you. You're speaking on behalf of the president, nigga. I ain't seen you out there to threaten the president. I ain't seen you out there to threaten the Russian president. You're the ambassador of the United States in Russia. You got to behave yourself. That's not what I wanted him to know. That's not the message I gave you to deliver. Imagine that's how the Most High feel about us. So it's telling you there are strangers that will have joined themselves to us. When all of this hit the fan, the Most High saying, nope, I don't want you to think that I'm separating you. Now imagine that. Then he goes on to say what? And neither the eunuch, don't let the eunuch is the men among us that don't have a desire for women. They're not homosexuals. They just are so into the work. They don't feel the thing, that urge that we all feel. They don't get it. But because of that person, then that means that person is never going to bear seed. The scriptures say, I don't want the eunuch to think that he's a dried tree. So those are two demographics outside of the general body of Israel that the Most High actually is paying special attention to. Then there's other blessings where the Most High tell us, guess what we're being measured by? Like I said, we're going to get back. I just got to mention while it pops up. In certain verses, our righteousness is being measured by how we take care of the widow, how we defend and provide for the fatherless, and how we deal with the stranger. Those three are consistently in the same verses that the Most High tell you about how you got to deal right with the widow, because she have nobody to defend for her. She's a widow. It says you have to deal right by the fatherless because they have no one to fend for them. They're orphans. And it says the stranger. It always puts those three together. So it's time that we start reading and teaching the Bible instead of all the doctrine that come from these lettered organizations. I this and I see that and IS this and WEB that and S-U-C that. I say F-U-C-K them all. I ain't gonna lie. That's how the Most High feel about it. Because why? Because they're pushing their doctrine and not his truth. If there's any letters, then you're supposed to say I-S-R-A-E-L. Israel. If them letters don't spell Israel, you got the wrong letters. You got dyslexia. All right. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Go ahead and read verse 3 once more, and then on down to 4.
Isaiah 56 and verse 3. Neither let the son of the stranger that have joined himself to the Lord speak, saying, the Lord have utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree.
Go ahead.
For thus saith the Lord unto the eunuch, unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant.
Now listen to this. Now right here, he's talking to the eunuchs. For all of you eunuchs, this is what I got in store for you. Go ahead.
Verse 5. Even unto them will I give in mine house and within my walls a place and a name better than of sons and of daughters.
And hold on, Mark. That's called the eunuchs among Israel. The Most High said, I'm going to give you a name, a place, and a name within my walls better than of sons and daughters. And the sons is the highest thing under Christ, y'all. The scriptures tell you that Christ came, and let me say, brother, to convert to so that we could be made in the likeness of him. But the eunuchs, the Most High got something special for them. Now let's read on down. Go ahead.
I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Verse 6. Also, the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the Lord to serve him.
Listen, the sons, I'm answering your question, brother, out there in the world that wrote me the question. The sons of the strangers that join themselves to the Most High. They joined, and what did it say earlier? It said that they joined themselves to what? To the Lord's people, right? To the Lord, saying that he hath utterly separated me from his people. So when it says it joined them to the Lord, that means he's joined to us, the sons of the strangers. When it says sons of the strangers, it's talking about the children of the strangers, the sons and daughters that have joined themselves to the Most High by serving us. Read that verse from the top again, verse 6.
Verse 6. Also, the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the Lord to serve him and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants. Everyone that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it and taketh hold of my covenant.
Go ahead.
Even them will I bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer.
Stop. So when we get delivered, they get delivered. We're going to be delivered and saved, but they're going to be preserved. What's the difference between the two? Because they're not in captivity. We are. So the Most High is coming to decimate all kingdoms. And among those kingdoms, those that cleave to the Most High by following his laws and serving us, guess what happened? They get, now brothers like y'all shocked. Like, say it ain't so. They're like, what the hell? But this is it. They're your servants by proxy, by being sons and daughters of the Most High. These are the ones whose prayers will be heard because their prayers align with what the will of the Most High is, which is for them to serve us and to follow his laws. Read verse 6 one more time and on into verse 7.
Isaiah 56 in verse 6. Also, the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the Lord to serve him and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants. Everyone that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it and taketh hold of my covenant, even them will I bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon mine altar.
Now
Mine house.
hold on. Who's going to do that? They can't come and burn no offerings. That's going to be done through the priest. And the Most High tell you in these scriptures, the Levites are going to be there doing that. Christ is just the high priest. The Levites are still going to hold the priestly position. Y'all got to get into this book. Christ already did the sacrifice for us. We go to the Most High directly through Christ. But all the other nations got to come through the priests. And the scriptures tell you that we all are what? A nation of priests now, the sons. What did John say on the island Patmos? And has made us kings and priests in the kingdom of our Lord and his Christ. Peter said, but ye are a nation of priests, a holy generation. That's all of us, y'all. That's that 144,000. 12,000 out of each tribe, the governing body, Christ's holy cabinet on earth. And then the rest of the innumerable multitude in Revelation 7 and 9 is all the nations. Is all the Israelites from among all the nations that is destined to be saved. Together they comprise the 1/3, right? The 144,000 and that innumerable multitude of men, women, children of all ages, of all nations where we were scattered. Read on down, It's verse 7 from the top again.
Isaiah 56 and verse 7. Even them will I bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon mine altar. Mine house shall be called an house of prayer for all people.
You hear that? Now, read verse, listen, that aligns with Isaiah chapter 2. That's why I said I wanted to say this for another day. When I will, I just got, while it's in me, I got to say it, right? Clearly the Most High have some thoughts out there that he got me attending. So, or addressing. Read verse 8. Now he's going to reiterate the demographics that's going to be gathered, y'all. Read verse 8.
Isaiah 56 and verse 8. The Lord power, which gathereth the outcasts of Israel, saith.
Stop.
Yet,
that first group is Israelites. He's recognizing. The Lord power, which gathereth the outcast of Israel. When this is outcast, because we were all cast out of our land. We're outcasts. So aside from the outcast of Israel, go ahead from the top.
Verse 8 from the top. The Lord power, which gathereth the outcasts of Israel, saith, yet will I gather others to him, beside those that are gathered unto him.
Yeah. In other words, yet will I gather others to him, meaning other people are going to be gathered to the Most High, aside or beside all those that are gathered. That means beside the outcast of Israel, there are others that are going to be gathered unto him, unto the Most High. They're your servants. Now, how that shows you how, that begs the question. So how are we supposed to be conducting ourselves in the various lands of our captivity toward non-Israelites? Would you like the answer to that question? Let's go get the answer to that question. How are we supposed to conduct ourselves? Number one, with respect to the knowledge that we have, others don't have this, we have it. In the face of all, we already know we're inclined, our first inclination is to teach and reach the brothers and sisters. But how are we supposed to conduct ourselves with the knowledge that we have of Christ and becoming salvation with non-Israelites? Let's go read in the book of Tobit, chapter 13. In the Apocrypha, Tobit, chapter 13. And start off at verse 1.
Tobit in the Apocrypha, chapter 13 and verse 1. Then Tobit wrote a prayer of rejoicing and said, blessed be the Most High that liveth forever.
What just happened? Tobit had been blind for 12 years. A bird dunged in his eyes and left him blind for like 8 to 12 years. let me see. In verse 14, 8 years. It tells you in chapter 14 and verse 2 that he lost, and he was 8. Let me see this. I'm reading chapter 14 and verse 1. So Tobit made an end of praising the Most High, and he was 50 years old when he lost his sight, which was restored to him after 8 years. And he gave alms, and he increased in the fear of the Lord Most High and praised him. So this is the person that after this 8-year infirmity of being blind, and then also a distant relative that was to be given to his son was being tormented by a demon who would kill any man that sought to marry her. Now, what does he say? He's in the land of his captivity. Yatazah, chapter 13, and verse 1 again. Go ahead.
Tobit chapter 13 and verse 1. Then Tobit wrote a prayer of rejoicing and said, Blessed be the Most High that liveth forever, and blessed be his kingdom. For he doth scourge and have mercy. He leadeth down to hell and bringeth up again. Neither is there any that can avoid his hand.
So he's letting you know, he's recognizing that he had been scourged by the Most High, to have been blinded, right? And he was doing good. He was doing all the things that pleased the Most High. The angel came and told him that to his face. You know, every time he was out there burying the dead, all the alms that you gave to the poor of your people, he said, I was there when you did it. And I took those deeds before the Most High. And I'm Raphael, and he sent me to heal you. Cold deal. But the Most High still afflicted him. Read on down, verse 3.
Verse 3. Confess him before the Gentiles, ye children of Israel, for he hath scattered us among them. There declare
What
his
are
glory.
we supposed to do? Hold on, I'm going to read verse 3. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to be angry. He said, confess him before the Gentiles. Ye children of Israel, for he hath scattered us among them. They're going to be the ones that some of them going to see it. And listen, in Jeremiah, there's a chapter that says, the Lord, it shall go well with thy remnant. This was the Most High talking to Jeremiah about our captivity in Babylon and all the other places. He said, it shall go well with thy remnant. The Lord shall cause the enemy to entreat thee well in the land of thy captivity. But if every time somebody that don't look like you, that ain't your nationality, have a kind word or a curious word, you know, it's your job to stay disciplined. They might be flirting with you, do different women, brothers trying to be cool with you and hang out. It's your responsibility to stay disciplined. But at the same time, then you're supposed to tell them what you're about. That's how you confess him before the Gentiles. We're scattered among them. How do you know those aren't the ones that the Lord said he will cause to entreat thee well? Because that's what happened with me and Yatazah out here. We had no enemies. We didn't have no enemies among the nations out here. There were Israelites trying to turn the nations against us, and they couldn't do it. Because we was teaching whoever the Most High made curious about us, about what we go through. We had many people come up and say, man, you know, I've been wanting to talk to y'all about these certain issues, but it's like I don't know how to approach you because it's hard to talk to a black person. First of all, what do I call you? Black, African, Afro-American? I've had cats come to me that I end up teaching 6 and 7 hours. I'm watching a movie when I was getting to know Rylop's mother down here, and I took her to see Amistad. I was teaching her and her sister Deuteronomy 28. And so they took me to see this movie called La Hija del Puma, right? About the 36-year conflict in Guatemala. Then I took them to see Amistad about Deuteronomy 28. So there's this Edomite that was boarding where I was boarding at. And he came in and saw the movie. He sat behind me and the two sisters, and he goes, how can you stand to watch this? It was at the scene where the brothers the people, the slaves that freed themselves from that ship and butchered all the captains and stuff, right? The shipmates or whatever. When he's telling his story, he's showing about how much hell they was catching on that ship. And this dude looked over and he leaned. He said, "Man, how can you watch this shit?" And I asked him, I looked back, I said, do you really want to know? He goes, yeah. I said, let me watch the movie. I said, you can accompany me to walk these two young ladies home and I'll drop it on you. I taught his ass from literally from 6 in the afternoon till 7 o'clock the next morning. And that dude converted himself to a servant. He was an Italian dude named Anthony. He had a twin brother named Antonio from Italy, living as a chef in San Francisco. This was back in '99. Never forget it, man. And it's been like that. I'm yet to say, you remember Amy. You know, we had a whole bunch of people. And the Most High ended up having them help us out. Right? So, reading on down, in verse 3, it said, confess him before the Gentiles, ye children of Israel, for he hath scattered us among them. Are you there, Yetazah? Verse 4? If not, Dawiyad, go ahead and pick up and read verse 4.
Verse 4. Oh, this is chapter 6, right? No.
Yeah, this is Tobit chapter 13.
Oh, Tobit 13. Sorry, I don't have that.
Tobit chapter 13, verse 3.
Go ahead.
Confess him before the Gentiles, ye children of Israel, for he has scattered us among them.
Go ahead.
There declare his greatness and extol him before all the living. For he is our Lord, and he is the God, our Father forever.
So now, listen, thank you, Nagaha. That you?
Yeah.
All right, brother. Sound good, man. Hey, listen. So this is showing that in these verses, in verse 3 and 4, this shows you there's a spirit that we're supposed to be in. We're not supposed to be railing. We're not supposed to be cussing people out. We ain't supposed to be talking all big and bad like we gonna do something, nigga. You ain't doing nothing. You waiting for salvation. You talking, we gonna be this and we know, nigga, we gonna be scared. They're wondering if we gonna make it. You saw, you got the president of the United States talking about sending task force out now. Task forces out to go door to door to persuade people through information to take the shot, but they got a list of everybody that ain't got it yet. The time is gonna come. You're gonna have to, you got to recognize that you need the Most High. All these big badass, people. Some people think it's about their mouth and their ability to talk all of that mess. Others think it's the salvation is gonna be in all of their numbers, massive numbers, always marching numbers. Most High said, strength cometh from above. The Most High said, whether a multitude or whether small, strength cometh from above. I don't feel no more powerful rolling with a whole bunch of cats. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, what do we be portraying? We're simple servants, humble servants that's supposed to be calling Israel out. And if in the process of calling out Israel, you find somebody that's curious, that's not an Israelite, but you're supposed to teach them. You don't know what the Most High gonna use them to do? Yetazah, are you still there?
Yeah.
Go ahead, verse 5.
Okay.
LT, come get this glass and fill my water, please.
Tobit chapter 13, verse 5. And he will scourge us for our iniquities, and will have mercy again, and will gather
Now,
us.
so hold on. That's what has happened. We have been and are finalizing being scourged, being beaten for our iniquities, but he's going to gather us again. That gathering is nigh. Go ahead.
Verse 5 from the top. And he will scourge us for our iniquities, and will have mercy again, and will gather us out of all nations, among whom he hath scattered us.
Go ahead.
Verse 6. If you turn to him with your whole heart and with your whole mind, and deal uprightly before him, then will he turn unto you, and will not hide his face from you.
Check that out. He's showing you that the Most High is very conditional. We got to be sincere. When it says and deal uprightly, that includes all aspects of our ability to what? To please the Most High. It's not just talking about the law, it's talking about our conduct. It's talking about how we entreat one another. It's talking about how we walk in Christ's steps. Brothers be claiming to be your followers of Christ. That's not talking about following like you in line. It's talking about his life, his thinking, his mission, his sufferings, his sacrifices, his servitude, his passion, his loss. And the first time one brother says something evil or unfair to you, you're already ready to go to war. You're already cussing each other out. You're already cussing each other's teachers out. That's not dealing uprightly. The scriptures tell us we're not supposed to render evil for evil. I had to learn how to check myself. Coming out of the school that I came out of, shit, we were being prepared for war, but we was fighting in certain aspects the wrong way. And so when we are reproached, we're so, like Paul said, we are reproached and we bless. We are threatened, yet we entreat. That's how we're supposed to operate. And that's the challenge. What makes it a challenge is our pride. We really think we're more than what we really are. We truly have an undeserved high estimation of ourselves. Shame on us. That's what dealing uprightly is. Uprightly now is measured by what? It's measured by Christ. Not just the law by itself, but the example of the walking law. That means we got to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, and then we got to implement Yahweh Shai in our goings, in our words, in our dealings. Verse 6 again.
Tobit chapter 13 and verse 6. If you turn to him with your whole heart, and with your whole mind, and do uprightly before him, then will he turn unto you, and will not hide his face from you. Therefore, see what he will do with you, and confess him with your whole mouth, and praise the Lord of might, and extol the everlasting King. In the land of my captivity do I praise him, and declare his might. In the land of my captivity do I praise him, and declare his might and majesty to a sinful nation. O you sinners, turn and do justice.
Read it again. Read it from in the land. My internet keep getting all jacked up. Go ahead. In the land.
In the land of my captivity do I praise him, and declare his might and majesty to a sinful nation. O you sinners, turn and do justice before him. Who can tell if he would accept you?
Now, where was Tobit? Where was Tobit? Tobit was in the land. Let's see, in chapter 1, verse 1, he tells you where he was. He was, hold on, words, yeah, it was then captive. So he's in Assyria. Listen to that. It tells you in verse 1 and 2 of chapter 1, the book of the words of Tobit, son of Tobiel, the son of Ananiel, the son of Aduel, the son of Gabael, of the seed of Asael, of the tribe of Naphtali, who in the time of Emenezer, king of the Assyrians, was led captive out of Thisbe, which is at the right hand of that city, which is properly called Naphtali, in Galilee of Asher. So this is where he's at. Verse 3, I, Tobit, have walked all the days of my life in the way of truth and justice, and I give many alms deeds to my brethren and my nation who came with me to Nineveh into the land of Assyria. So when he says in chapter 13, that last third of verse 6, read that again, Amiyatazah. In the land
of my captivity do I praise him, and declare his might and majesty to a sinful nation. O you sinners, turn and do justice before him. Who can tell if he will accept you and have mercy on you?
Now he's talking to who? He's talking to the Assyrians. He said, I confess, my Lord, and I teach them to a sinful nation. So that's that for now. Let's go on to Acts chapter 10. I hope the brother that's out there in YouTube land, I hope that's good enough for you to see The Most High, yeah, my water, you got a question?
You said that he was talking to the Gentiles or the Israelites that were scattered.
Listen to what I'm saying. Now, what did we just read? We just read Tobit chapter 3 and verse 13 and verse 6. And at the last part, he's talking about how we're supposed to be among the nations where we're scattered. Of course, the book is written to us, but he's telling us that he talks to the nations among whom he scattered. He called them a sinful nation. The Most High tell us that in Philippians. Let's go get the same thing. Hold up. Let me get this first. Don't lose your point. Go to Philippians chapter 2. Is it chapter 2? I'm yet to say in verse 15. Don't lose your point out. Philippians chapter 2 and verse 15. Is it?
Philippians chapter 2 and verse 15. That ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of the Most High, without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world.
So even amongst the crooked, perverse generation that we are, we still supposed to be shining as lights. Like we ain't bad, like Israel be trying to act like. Always talking about they ready for war. Brother, the Most High said, not by might nor by strength, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Ain't nobody gonna be getting up here fighting with Esau. Nigga, Esau will take a whole city block out with your black ass under the rubble. Always talking stuff. Be making videos out on the range shooting. Okay, fine. Bring that attention to your ass. If that's what you want Esau to think about you, go ahead. Be out there filming every time you're out on the range shooting your little bitty pea shooters. Okay, brother, what's the point you wanted to make out or the question you wanted to ask?
In Tobit, when it said sinful nation, the scripture is talking about us being sinful nation.
No, we got removed out of Israel for being sinful. That's why he opened up in chapter 13 with the fact that we're being scourged. He's no longer among his nation. We're all scattered. So he's saying, in the land of my captivity, see, it's not his place. In the land of where? My captivity. We went to chapter 1, verses 1 through 3 to find out where he was. He was in Assyria. That's the sinful nation amongst whom, aside from Israel, he what? He confessed the Most High, and he's saying, who knows? If you start dealing right, maybe he'll have mercy and accept you. And he's talking to the Assyrians because he already said that the Most High has punished us and he's going to gather us again. That's verse 5. And he will scourge us for our iniquities and will have mercy on us again, have mercy again, and will gather us out of all nations among whom he had scattered us. But this verse 6 is telling us he's given us more in verse 6 concerning what he said in verse 3. Confess him before the Gentiles, ye children of Israel, for he hath scattered us among them. He said you're supposed to be teaching. And listen, go ahead.
The reason why I asked you is because I remember you said
you have to speak better or come closer. Come closer, please.
That I've heard you said before in previous classes that you would refer to the nation as evildoers, meaning that the ones that don't have the law.
Right, and now you'll also, I also said that he'll say sinner and it'll oscillate between the two. We know the definition of sin, right, is to transgress the law. Right. So those are the people who Christ died for. But then you have certain verses where he'll be applying the general concept. I'll find those for you. He'll be applying the general concept of wrongdoing, and he'll call it sin. He'll refer to them as a sinful nation. He talks about the Canaanites like that in the Wisdom of Solomon. a sinful nation, but they were a sinful seed from the beginning. But he ain't talking about it. And so you have to know, first of all, you have to follow the line of what's being said, right? When the scriptures talk about Christ dying for the sinners, then of course he's talking about repentance or remission for the sinners. Those are the key words that let you know he's talking about the Israelites. But when there's other verses where he just generally speaks of wrong or evil doing, and he'll say the sinners. So yes, Dawiya.
Doesn't America, quote unquote, pray, they swear on the Bible? So Esau presented himself a Christian, and then he swore on the Bible in his court system. So technically he knows the information.
Say that again. Technically he knows what?
I'm saying swears on the Bible in his court system. And
right.
By presenting himself as a Christian nation. Therefore,
right.
He's burden of the law because he pretended and projected himself to be a person of the scripture. But
I see the logic, but the brother's question is about a previous class where I was pointing out how the Most High referred to the sinners. We're the sinners, and we are. But in that same class, I also mentioned that you'll find certain isolated verses where he's using the term sinner more loosely. And this is one of them, because he's telling us who he's talking about. He's talking about the people amongst the land that he's living, the non-Israelites. And he said, who knows, if you be upright, the Most High might have mercy on you. And guess what happened? Jonah came there. He tells you in the end of this book. Jonah came there, and when Jonah preached, they did turn from the evil way, and the Most High did have mercy on them and give them a reprieve, and Jonah was mad about it. That's what happened. That's what the whole book of Jonah, which is like 4 or 5 chapters, about. So if you're sitting in class and we go through other verses like that, raise your hand and then we can go over those verses as they pop up so that you can see how we know, technically speaking, right, definitively speaking, the term sin is defined in the book of 1 John as what? As transgression of the law. And we are the sinners. But then there are other verses, and this is one of them, where the term sin is used more loosely. You understand? Is that clear to you, my Waller?
Done.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up, Art.
Done.
Okay. So all that was about really was what? The brother asked a question, and that's not even the topic. I just wanted to show that there are verses where the Most High show us the Most High is not, let me put it like this. What we read, I'm a Yatazah. What do you think, or I want you to add something to what we just read, because we operated like this for 10 years. What do you have to say about that paradigm of how to entreat the nations?
I think it's totally on point. I really liked when you were going in about being ambassadors of Yahushua. I think that really hit home, because we can compare it to how ambassadors of countries conduct themselves in the world. We have a legitimate parallel, and so it really does shine the light on how Israel conducts themselves today. As you said, when a lot of Israelites believe that, or once they get this truth, because of the fact that prior to coming into the truth, they were disenfranchised. They were discriminated against by the system. They were living in social housing. They were at the bottom, and so a lot of people feel now that they get this truth, they can now vent at Esau. They can now attack Esau. But that's not what this is about. The Most High is calling us back to Him to really refine us. Not to now use this as an excuse. to get to be angry and vengeful. Okay, that's really what it is. A lot of people they get drunk on the power that the scriptures give us in terms of the liberation that we get from the system. And so it really is about, as you said, the scriptures make it clear that we are going to have strangers amongst us. We've read on numerous occasions where when we're in the kingdom, that we're going to be having strangers and people of the nations coming to us continually with their resources. And so we're here, as we would say, rehearsing the righteous acts. So why are we not rehearsing that aspect? Why we talk so much about keeping the Sabbath, keeping the high holidays. What about be conducting ourselves like quote unquote royalty towards the nation? Why not let go of the anger and just lock into the spirit of Yahushai? And I just said, be a true ambassador. Be men of peace. Be men of peace. You try to just teach. Just that's all we're here to do. Teach everyone and let the Most High sort them out. As opposed to us trying to select who we think is an Israelite or who we think the Most High, the Most High wants. We're servants, and so I think you're totally on point. It's frozen. Yeah. But then what's even worse now is that it seems as if some brothers are turning away from being angry at Esau, and now there's a civil war amongst Israel. Yeah. Now they're directing their anger at other Israelite groups. Back in the day, you'd watch a lot of street speaking videos on YouTube, and you'll hear brothers, just verbally attacking Edomites, verbally attacking sisters, Israelite sisters, and it was really just disgusting, because that's not the spirit we're supposed to be operating out of, and like I said, now you're seeing numerous videos where brothers are confronting other Israelite brothers, ready to go to ready to start fighting one another. And it's disgraceful. That isn't an ambassador of Yahushua. That isn't how Yahushua would conduct himself. How can brothers think that they're in the spirit? They're not, and it's a shame upon themselves. It's a shame.
I agree, bro.
But I don't know. Hopefully brothers will watch this and they'll change their ways. Like, this life is not hard. I always think about that. We always say the life is demanding, because obviously the Most High, he's trying to refine us. He's trying to purge out, the negative from within us. He's trying to purge out the weakness within us. And so we have to be put under a certain amount of, physical duress, a certain amount of stress, to make us push through the weakness of the flesh to tap into the spirit. What always amazes me is how, after putting in, you might put 12 hours in front of the cart, or 15-hour days, and you'll be just exhausted. But the Most High wants you to push through that exhaustion, and that's when the spirit kicks in. And that film just has always amazed me. But the Most High, he's creating that hardness, as I said, to refine us and to get us to walk in the spirit. He wants us to come out of the world, right? But in coming out of the world, we no longer, fall victim to the barrage of, messages and stimuli that these corporations and these wicked Edomites in terms of all the LGBTQ stuff that they're trying to indoctrinate us with, this whole consumerism where you're just buying. That's all people are thinking about. Oh, what's the next one I'm going to buy? They can never really tap into the spirit and just really focus on their own growth. So by coming out of the world, we're now cut off from that dynamic. We're truly meditating on the scriptures. Our minds are constantly on the Most High, and that's how we grow in the spirit. You can literally just be in your house all day doing your work, doing whatever that you're doing. Obviously, you guys have got your businesses, and by meditating on the Most High, more of His Spirit pours into you. Whereas, like when you're in the world and you're entertaining, just the madness, reality TV, just constantly shopping, your mind's on those things. Your mind can't be on the Most High, so you can't grow in the spirit. And so the Most High does make it real easy. But obviously, for a lot of people, they need that drama. They need, they need that stimuli. Without it, they feel like they're not living. When really and truly, that to me, that's death. So there's so much that brothers and sisters are doing that's just wrong. That's according to scriptures, not according to not my opinion. Actually, I talked about the simplicity of Himself, and we make it hard. We make it very, very hard. It's a shame.
I like what you brought up about the barrage of consumerism and toxic.
Right.
I agree.
I'm back, man. That internet, brother. Yakuza, you were saying something about the ambassador, and you made a point. You said that we're supposed to be being ambassadors, and you made a mention about I can't quote you, but you refer to us being ambassadors of peace.
Yeah.
And I was just going to use that to just emphasize Russia and the United States was at the height of the Cold War, right? Where at any given moment, either was prepared to preemptively or defensively launch an all-out nuclear assault on one another. And with all of that, and with that enmity, they still had what? They still had embassies in each other's lands.
Exactly.
And in the embassies in these other lands, when a person was had to go, when an ambassador was summoned to go deal with the head of state or the secretary of state or a foreigner's equivalent of the United States Secretary of State, they would deal like as if they were friends.
Yeah. The thing is this. I think one of the things that I feel Israelites refuse to accept, is the caliber of person that the Most High wants us to become.
Right.
It's like the Most High expects. That's what I was saying when you was gone. That, as you always say, this life isn't hard; it's demanding.
Right.
It's demanding because of what the Most High, the level of refinement the Most High wants from us, to know the level of introspection. Where He wants us to be constantly, having these daily reviews. Where can I improve? What weaknesses can I overcome? But we read scriptures about, how anger is really associated, with fools and foolishness, and that's really where these attacks on whether it's Edomites, where now it's other Israelite groups, where Israelite sisters, it's really that anger, that lack of emotional management, that really immaturity. It's really immaturity in not only in the spirit, but also in the flesh.
Right.
But the Most High is saying, you guys are my ambassadors. You have to grow. I remember you used to teach about, being balanced.
Right.
You know, you have to have a certain level of emotional balance in this work. You know, you cannot be given to anger, to rage, to, you know, just impulsiveness. There has to be that level of growth. And I feel like this is what, you know, brothers and sisters camps, you know, aren't really pushing, that they're not teaching. And I feel that, especially, you know, we mentioned earlier, if you're only meeting once a week to do street speaking, where's the room to develop the character? You know, where's the room to build these men? There has to be a dynamic where you're amongst one another, you know, continuously, where the elders are able to observe, you know, the flaws within the members of their congregation, and then, you know, implement the means to help them, you know, refine themselves. But as I said, you know, if you're only meeting on a Saturday to street speak, then what the rest of the week, what's going on?
Right. Hey, listen, go to the book of Acts. I'm going to show you. This is what helped me. First of all, it started in Texas. It started once I got on the road, not even in Texas. Once I went to New York, and then the Most High called me back out with my teacher, and we began to open up. There were so many things. There were so many perils that we found ourselves in. And now when I say perils, I'm talking about snowed in. I'll never forget, we in Louisville, Kentucky, we got snowed in. When I say snowed in, meaning the van broke down. And then it started snowing, snowstorm for like 3 days. I was in that van, Brother Ariella, Haran, and myself, and Mashab. It was a long ass time. And in other circumstances, the van would break down in the middle of the hottest desert. There would be Edomites that would come to our help. I'm talking about, you know, I'm not going to lie, because they were the ones that were in the position to help us out. I'm talking about being out burning up all day, just praying and hoping a tow truck would pass by, and nobody, you know, and then they popping up and getting a tow truck. For just all type of things like that, where the Most High showed me there's a way that we got to operate. But what really hit me was when I went and I read Acts chapter, go to Acts chapter 26. I guess that's the last chapter of the book of Acts. Let's go there. And the attention that I want to call you to, or the verse I want to call to your attention, is going to be in chapter 26. The occasion was Paul. Let's listen. Let's read about it first, and I'll let the scripture speak. I'm getting there. It's in chapter 26, 19. And that's 26. Let me see. Okay, we're in chapter 26. Paul is, let me see where I want to start at. Okay, we're going to take some time. So let me say this. We'll get back to Romans. I'm sorry, not Romans. Acts chapter 10 this coming Friday, because this, you know, we got 40-something minutes left. I'm gonna kind of pop through chapter 26 of Acts. I'm gonna show you an encounter between Paul and Agrippa. Now, Paul had to go. Paul was sent. Let's put it like this: Paul was persecuted by the Israelites, by Jews, and he was turned over to the Roman authorities to stand before Felix, to stand before Festus, and to stand before Agrippa. So here he is standing before his final magistrate. And the conversation, I want you to check out the tenure, the demeanor of the conversation between the two men. And people say, well, Paul wrote like that to save his life. That's a lie, because if Paul had the opportunity to save his life by not going to Jerusalem. when he was out in Iconium or one of the places, his last, it might have been Antioch, his last stop before Jerusalem, a prophet came up to him and took his girdle and bound himself with it and said, whoever this belonged to, so shall he happen. So this is what shall happen to him in Jerusalem. They shall take him and bind him and turn him over to the authorities. And the people that was with Paul there saw that and they started crying. They said, Paul, don't go. Paul said, what? Why are you breaking my heart? What break ye my heart for? He said, I'm ready to not only be turned in, I'm ready to die for the gospel of Yahushua. If he was going to do anything to not die at that point, he would have just stayed out of Jerusalem. But he said, the prophet said, the man to whom this girdle belonged, thus shall he be taken in Jerusalem. So now he's being charged, and he didn't think that he was going to be let free. So he appealed to Caesar. And the authority said, man, had you not appealed, I was going to let you free. So now he has to go to Rome. But listen to this dialogue, this chapter, this dialogue between Agrippa and Paul. And I'm trying to show you this is how we're supposed to roll always, unless there's an occasion for chastisement, unless the conversation gets vehement, very fervent, we got to put some stuff in check. We're not supposed to be operating like rabid animals. And people will say, well, oppression maketh the wise man mad. Nigga, that ain't saying that. The Bible, that's not, they're using the verse to say, to justify their anger and their ravenous behavior. But the word, when the scriptures say, oppression maketh a wise man mad, it's saying oppression taketh wise men and it eventually makes them lose their senses. Mad in the scriptures is crazy. Angry, the scriptures refer to as being wroth, being wrathful, being, there's other terms that the being choler. The Bible doesn't use the term mad when it describes anger. Mad biblically describes out of one's intellectual wits. It means crazy, like as in Deuteronomy where the Lord said, the Lord shall smite thee with madness, meaning with craziness. And that's what oppression does. It makes you lose your senses. It drives you out of your mind. So enough with the using that as an excuse just to not having control. Now, Miyatazah, that's chapter 26 of Acts, and start off at verse 1, please.
Acts 26 and verse 1. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, thou art permitted to speak for thyself. Then Paul stretched forth the hand and answered for himself. Hold
on. I'm sorry, we'll have to do this later. Because this actually starts at this actually starts in Acts chapter 24. I mentioned those three people. In Acts chapter 24, Paul is standing before Felix, right? In Acts chapter 25, he gets sent to Festus, another magistrate that was above the authority of Felix. Then in chapter 26, he gets sent to Agrippa, who was above all of them. But you gotta, we'll go ahead and read 26. But I want to actually, we're gonna do actually a class on that. We're gonna have a class called ambassadorship. All right, y'all?
No, that'd be good.
So you can know how we're supposed to roll, huh? And this is why that's why you guys out there are getting things done. The Most High is opening doors for you, Dawiyat, y'all brothers out there, because of how you conduct yourself and how you entreat people. All the people that you deal with, whether clients or whether the people that hire you, they're not all Israelites, are they? Especially the ones that put us in a position to make money, right? Okay, but look what opens the doors. Look at how Shamshuan rolls like a straight ambassador. Look at how a war, huh?
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing I would say about both camps in terms of San Antonio and how we did it in Guatemala. When I was in San Antonio, just seeing how not just a war, Dawiyard, obviously these are the only guys that were there now, but a war, Shamshwan, Dawiyard, seeing how they conduct themselves in the malls, how they spoke to their clients, many being Edomites, people in the world. There was a pleasantness, and seeing how their clients entreated them. They had many Edomite guys and young. For me, what was interesting was when I would hear the brothers talking about how some of their clients, they'd known them since they were young, since they
Right,
were young, since they were young kids, and they'd been coming back to them to buy or they knew all about their lives.
right.
It was just interesting seeing that dynamic, seeing the interaction between them and their clients, and just the spirit that they rode in. They didn't have the angry spirit about them. They weren't
Listen,
angry.
when
They weren't.
the people came, they were glad
Yeah.
to see their clients, not just for money. Listen, when I was there, uh, my rib LT's mother was there, and she worked at places, and most of her co-workers in the places that she worked at were our clients. And so they were like, they thought in their minds, those were my employees because I was the head of school. And they were always telling her how pleasant. They would be talking about Tazawar, Tazadakia. They was talking about Yashar Malak, all them brothers. Like, man, that's so pleasant. They'd be like, I just wish I had more. This is what they would be telling her. They would be telling Ashariah this, and she would come home from work and be talking about the brothers at Rolling Oaks Mall, talking about the brothers at Ingram Park Mall, talking about the brothers that was working at the River Center. Literally, and none of them were Israelites. They would talk about how lovely, man, your husband's employees are so pleasant and so beautiful. I could just sit there all day and just talk to them. They always have such encouraging advice. This is what they used to say.
Yeah.
And that's how you're supposed to roll.
Yeah. And even us in Guatemala, how many, Edomites, people from a different nation would be coming to us, with their problems,
Solving their problems,
wanted counsel from us, just wanted the people to talk to. And we entreat all of them, we entreated all of them, and that's one of the thing about, I guess, our camps. One of the things that I'll never forget that what you always say, that just maintain a positive outlook, and they're just amongst, our group of brothers and sisters. There is that overall just pleasantness. There is that, I guess, yeah, just being ambassadors of Yahushua, just trying to be a great and samples to one another and
Right.
examples to the world, trying to be that light.
To look at you and want more. They're supposed to interact with you and literally want more. They're supposed to be, if Christ is in you, then you have the potential to literally, even if for that moment, have a healing effect on most people.
Yeah.
People will walk into our store and go, man, it's so peaceful in here.
Yeah.
They would say all type of stuff. It makes them want to spend money. It's so peaceful in here. I could just come here and stay all day.
Yeah.
Because there was the Spirit of the Most High was really there. How many times have I sat on a stool in the middle of that store? I mean, it's counseling couples. People that were there to adopt kids. Other ones that was there healing from, looking for back for their culture.
Yeah.
I was born in Guatemala. I was born in Colombia, but I got adopted by some other people, and I'm back here to learn my language and see what it's like. I want to eventually go back to Colombia, but I want to be able to speak the Spanish. All type of stuff. We would help them out, huh?
Yeah.
Our people are broken, and the world in general is broken. Hell, even Christ threw the damn Canaanite woman some crumbs. You know what I'm saying? Israel don't get it. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead. Chapter 26 and verse 1.
Acts chapter 26 and verse 1. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, Thou art permitted to speak for thyself. Then Paul stretched forth the hand and answered for himself. I think myself happy, King Agrippa, because I shall answer for myself this day before thee, touching all the things whereof I am accused of the Jews.
Yeah, the Jews, meaning his own people, were accusing me, but I thank you for allowing me to speak for myself. As well. First of all, he's showing gratitude. He's showing himself appreciative. He's letting the king know how appreciative he is to have the opportunity to what? To defend himself. Go ahead.
Verse 3. Especially because I know thee to be expert in all customs and questions which are among the Jews. Wherefore I beseech thee to hear me patiently.
Now, guess what? He's making you have to know the back history on Agrippa. Agrippa is one of the Herods, and the Herod family line, their mother is a Jew. From the days of the Maccabees, one of the Maccabees brothers had a daughter that married an Idumean who was the patriarch of the Herodians, the house of Herod. And so because of that, Herod was considered in certain circles a Jew. So this person is one of the sons of that Herod. That's why he said, I know you to be an expert in these matters. Because what happened? Because he came from the group of people that Judas Maccabees, Jonathan, Simon, and all the Maccabee brothers defeated the Idumeans, and under the condition that they would circumcise themselves and follow the laws of the Most High, they were allowed to stay in that land. And that's where you get the people and their mother. And so his great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother was an Israelite woman. So he's making a connection with this dude. But you wouldn't know that if you don't know more history than just what you read here. Go ahead.
Verse 4. My manner of life from my youth, which was at the first among mine own nation at Jerusalem, know all the Jews.
Go ahead.
Which knew me from the beginning, if they would testify, that after the most straightest sect of our religion, I lived a Pharisee.
Yeah, he said, they all know me. The people that are accusing me, I should roll with them. They know me. They know that I'm of the strictest sect of our religion. Now, do Paul confess to have a religion? No, you got to go read the rest of the scriptures. All Paul talked about was the law and what? And the faith that was in Christ and the commandments. You understand? But why do Paul use religion here? Because he's identifying with what the foreigners understand our practices as religion. And it's first applied in the book of Maccabees with the imposition of the Greeks. So he's communicating. First, he's making he's establishing a connection through that man and his own history. Well, when it says thou art an expert, ain't talking about because he went to Jew school. Nigga went to Jew school to become an ambassador. No, he grew up. He came from a culture that had what they call Judaism imposed on him. And his great-grandmother or great-great-grandmother, depending on the generation he was a Jew. Now Paul is coming back and saying he's talking language that this person understands, like we would do. If we didn't want to take the shot, we wouldn't say the law, statute, and command. We said, listen, I want a religious exemption, because that's what we would do if they offered it. Go ahead, Amir.
Verse 6. And now I stand and am judged for the hope of the promise made of the Most High unto our fathers, unto which promise our 12 tribes instantly served the Most High day and night, hope to come. For which hope's sake, King Agrippa, I am accused of the Jews.
Yeah, I'm accused because of the hope that I have, that our very fathers shared the same hope, is what he's saying. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Why should it be thought a thing incredible with you that the Most High should raise the dead? I've already thought with myself that I ought to do many things contrary to the name of Yahushua of Nazareth.
Now he's saying, why would that be so hard for you to understand that a man be raised from the dead? Now he's appealing to the what? The Roman side of this Idumean, where they had crazy religious superstitions themselves. So he's asking, why would that be? You know, he basically, he's kind of, I won't say gassing them, but he's letting them know this is not something that's above your ability to understand. That's what he's saying to the dude. He said, and before this, I did things contrary to the name of Yahweh Shah of Nazareth. Remember, he's making reference to what? To when he used to persecute the church before he was converted. Continue.
Verse 10. Which thing I also did in Jerusalem, and many of the saints did I shut up in prison, having received authority from the chief priests. And when they were put to death, I gave my voice against them.
So Paul consented and condemned many people to death. This is what many Israelites that believed in Christ. This is what he's telling us. Now, what is he doing? I'm a Yeftazah. What do we be talking with the brothers in Cali about? He's being an open book with this man.
Yeah.
He's sharing them listen, that ain't something that a follower of Christ would necessarily want to share with somebody that's getting ready, that have the power to condemn him. But he's getting them a little bit more intimate. He's like, I was so adamant against that name that I consented to many of them death when I shut them up in prison. The minute I got authority, he's telling the dark side of his history before Christ. Now, who does that? Trying to show us those, when you open yourself up, that open book approach that touches and that reaches people. Read on down.
Verse 11. And I punished them oft in every synagogue, and compelled them to blaspheme. And being exceedingly mad against them, I persecuted them even unto strange cities.
He said, I went crazy against them. I persecuted them. I made them blaspheme. That means Paul was brutal and cruel to the followers of Christ, y'all. And this is what he's telling this king, who he didn't have to tell that to. Go ahead, Amayetazah.
Verse 12. Whereupon, as I went to Damascus with authority and commission from the chief priests, at midday, O king, I saw in the way a light from heaven, above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me and them which journeyed with me.
Now he's telling him about what? That moment in which he encountered the one in whose name he was persecuting those people. He's telling him what changed him. These people that I used to persecute, one day I'm on the road to go get some more of them, and all of a sudden a light brighter than the sun shone round about me and everybody that was with me. Go ahead.
Verse 14. And when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me, and saying in the Hebrew tongue, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks.
Go ahead. Now he's accounting what we could easily read in Acts chapter 9. This all happened in Acts chapter 9. Go ahead.
Verse 15. And I said, Who art thou, Lord? And he said, I am Yahushai, whom thou persecutest. But rise and stand upon thy feet, for I have appeared unto thee for this purpose, to make thee a minister and a witness both of these things which thou hast seen, and of those things in the which I will appear unto thee.
That means he said, now, and I'm going to appear to you some more. And you're going to become a servant to those things. That's what a minister is. Go ahead.
Verse 17. Delivering thee from the people and from the Gentiles, unto whom now I send thee.
Right, go ahead.
Verse 18. To open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan unto the Most High, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and inheritance among them which are sanctified by faith that is in me.
These are all the things that Christ was telling him. Go ahead.
Verse 19. Whereupon, O King Agrippa, I was not disobedient unto the heavenly vision, but showed first unto them of Damascus, and at Jerusalem, and throughout all the coasts of Judea, and then to the Gentiles.
When he says and then to the Gentiles, he's not talking about to the non-Israelites. You have to read the entire book of Acts, and you'll see he went to all of those cities, Iconium, Derbe, Lystra, all the places, 4 journeys, and they were all pockets of saints, pockets of Israelites. He's telling you who it was right here, right? Go ahead.
Verse 20 from the top. But showed first unto them of Damascus, and at Jerusalem, and throughout all the coasts of Judea, and then to the Gentiles, that they should repent and turn to the Most High, and
Go
do
ahead.
works meet for
Now, how
repentance.
do you know these were Israelites? Because they were told to repent. Repent means to come back. The other nations never were with the Most High. And like I said, this verse, you have to have read the entire book so that you could see all the places where he was going. And then it would be those later on, they would be referred to as the brothers who are among the Gentiles. Go ahead.
Verse 21. For these causes the Jews caught me in the temple and went about to kill me. Having therefore obtained help of the Most High, I continue unto this day, witnessing both to small and great, saying none other things than those which the prophets and Moses did say should come.
Now, why did he invoke Moses and the prophets? Once again, this Agrippa was well informed and schooled on that, because that was his mother's side of the culture on his mother's side. Period, point blank. So Agrippa knew about, when I say mother, I don't mean his mother, I'm talking about the mother that I'm referred to, the great grandmother. Go ahead.
Verse 23. That Yahushua should suffer, and that he should be the first that should rise from the dead, and should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles.
Go ahead.
Verse 24. And as he thus spake for himself, Festus said with a loud voice, Paul, thou art beside thyself. Much learning doth make thee mad.
Now there's that term mad. In other words, when he said that Christ was the first to rise from the dead, that he should show light unto the people and unto the Gentiles, meaning to the scattered Israelites, Festus was sitting in on that meeting with Agrippa, because he's the one that told Agrippa about Paul. And Paul and Agrippa and his wife wanted to know. Festus was already delighted, but now when he heard that, Festus said, man, you study too much, Paul, it's making you crazy. All your studies have made thee mad. Go ahead.
Verse 25. But he said, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness.
No, man, I'm not crazy. No, Your Honor. I'm speaking clear-mindedly and truthfully. Now watch this.
Verse 26. For the king knoweth of these things, before whom also I speak freely. For I am persuaded that none of these things are hidden from him. For this thing was not done in a corner.
So now, once again, he's talking to King Agrippa. He's like, he knows all of this. He's appealing to that connection. First of all, politically, anybody that was appointed as a governor or any authority by the Romans in that land or any other lands, they had to be the ones that were the most skillful in the culture, in the issues, like when they have, for instance, ambassadors in Iraq. They have ambassadors in Iran or whatever they have. Those people are there have to be of the highest level of information and preparedness. First of all, not in just speaking Arabic, not just in understanding the issues of Islam and the different sects, the Sunnis, the Shias, and all that. They also have to be able to listen to a person's Arabic speaking and know what region of the country that they're from. That's how these people were. Now, Paul is speaking to them in Greek because that's the language that they spoke. Go ahead.
Verse 27. King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? I know that thou believest.
See, why would he say this? See, people read that and they don't understand. Because this dude grew up in a household that claimed to be Jews. That's the whole point. He was one of the sons of the Herod that persecuted Yahushua at his birth. So he was the king of the Jews. His father was the king of the Jews. So here we are reading. He says, listen, I know you know, King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know you believe. He's making a connection. He's not operating with this person out of enmity. The Most High gonna bring you and you faggot ass Romans down. He ain't coming like that. Go ahead, I'm gonna read that verse again, verse 27. And watch in the following verse Agrippa's response. which showed you Paul was winning. Go ahead.
Verse 27. King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? I know that thou believest. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian.
He said, yeah, I believe, so much so that you almost make me want to be a Christian. What does that answer mean? That means, yes, I know and believe the prophets. Hell, you make me want to be a Christian. You make me want to follow Christ. That means what? Paul was hitting him, huh? He was touching him. The other one, Festus, like, man, you study too much, man. Them books is making you crazy. But this one, he was like, no, I see what he's saying. Go ahead.
Verse 29. And Paul said, I want to the Most High that not only thou, but also all that hear me this day were both almost and altogether such as I am, except these bonds.
See, look, now Paul kind of is joking with it. He's being serious, but it's being a little, meaning a light air touch. He's like, well, I wish all of you that's hearing me could be like this, be like me all together, except for in these handcuffs. That's what he's saying, because he was a prisoner. But he's saying, I wish all of you could be followers of Christ. I wish all of you could see the light like I see. I wish you were all like me, except for a prisoner. Go ahead.
Verse 13. And when he had thus spoken, the king rose up, and the governor, and Bernice, and they that sat with them.
So hold on. The king is Agrippa. Bernice is his wife, and the governor is Festus, the one who spoke in verse 24. Now listen to what they say. Read verse 30 again.
Verse 30. And when he had thus spoken, the king rose up, and the governor, and Bernice, and they that sat with them. And when they were gone aside, they talked between themselves, saying, this man doeth nothing worthy of death or of bonds.
He got to them. See that? The king, Festus, Bernice, and all of those that sat with them went to the side and they talked among themselves. This dude ain't did nothing worthy of bonds. Listen, he have done nothing worthy of death or imprisonment. That's what bonds is. Read on down, read the last verse.
Verse 32. Then said Agrippa unto Festus, this man might have been set at liberty if he had not appealed unto Caesar.
Because earlier in chapter 24, when he was dealing with Felix, Paul, things didn't look too good out. And so he appealed to a higher court. So before he could get to Caesar, which is in Rome, he had to go through the channels like you got to do today. You got to go through the circuit court and you got to go to this court. And then eventually you make it to the Supreme Court. So that's what he did. And he said, man, if he hadn't appealed, we would let him free. But they were sticklers for their law. And since Paul did officially make an appeal, he wanted to speak in a higher circuit before the highest law of the land. They had to follow through with it. But you see, now what got him that? You know what I see? I see a whole lot. But with respect to what we're talking about this evening, it shows me conduct and communication. It shows me eloquence and being targeted and poised when I'm what? When I'm speaking on behalf of Christ. And guess what happens? From the day that the Most High woke me up, it took a while for me to get there, but I found out, and it's crystal clear, that I'm always speaking about Christ. That's why he woke me up. I ain't never speaking about nothing else but him now. Yes, I might have these various small talk with the intention of getting there. When I say small talk, let's say I'm in my place of business, which we used to, we don't have it now. Oh, lockdown and everything. But people would come up and, you know, what you doing? Or I'd have a flyer, a business card. I go up to the people on the street. That's how I met. This is how eventually, I had to design myself with me, because I did this and met the brother that I would teach, that would end up teaching him. Yeah, you remember Rashwan, you know? So this is what I do with everybody. I go up on the streets, talk to them like you guys do in the mall. And of course, I'm telling them about the store, trying to get them inside to see. I'm trying to get them inside this little enclosed area so that the senses can overtake them. I want them to see the decorations. I want them to see how well ordered the store is. I want them to see how all the stuff sitting on the cedar wood. We did everything with cedar wood. but it was a cold setup. Cedar wood, glass, and brass, right? With all the paintings on the wall. And they would be blown away. Whoa, you know, well, what brought you here to Guatemala? Man, I got mad tales, brother. I got mad history, I got mad stories, right? That's no, in other words, now they ask me something about myself, but I know that it's not about me, it's about them. So I tell them a little bit, but then I said, what about you? What brings you here? And then once I get them talking, now I'm showing more curiosity. I'm asking more questions. Whatever they answer, I'm asking and I'm rebutting that results in them giving more detail. I'm establishing rapport. This is how, and so, but eventually, guess what happened? The goal is to get everybody to that book. Esau, we want his money. Israel, we want his book. But depending on the level of conversation, or I should say, the turn that the conversation takes, we end up talking about the scriptures with anybody. They'll be, I just came down here such and such, and many people were divorced and just wanted to get out and go and learn Spanish, try to occupy their mind. We end up healing somebody. Other persons are coming down, like I said, looking to buy a kid under the title of adoption. It was all type of stuff, right? Other persons then suffered a breakup with girlfriend. One brother we met was from here. His father was Guatemalan. His mother was, or his father was Jamaican, and his mother Guatemalan, and he never saw his country. And we ended up teaching him. I mean, this is how, and then he would talk. He was going through some issues. He had just lost his son, his wife. No matter what he did, it wasn't good enough. And his wife took his son, and he was sitting talking to us. I'll never forget the brother. He was sitting talking to us and letting us know, man. He said, I grew up hating my father because I thought he just abandoned us and wasn't there for me. He said, but now it's making me think behind what I just went through with my wife, how I did everything that you're supposed to do, and I did everything to be a good husband and father, and she still took my son. He said, what if that was the case with my father? That's what he said. And guess what happened? Voila, boom. We go right to the scriptures and show him that was the case. And this was cold because we only had him for about an hour. Then he had already purchased a ticket to go see a certain part of the country that he didn't want to, lose his money on, but he still wanted to learn. I said, bro, what time are you going to be back? He said, man, I ain't going to get back till about 3 a.m. I said, okay. I said, listen, you give me a call. I said, I'm going to come and get you. He's going to bring you to the house. Shit, I went to bed. I went on to do what I had to do after work, 12 o'clock midnight. 3 o'clock in the morning, I get a call. Yeah, the brother's back. I said, come on over, man. We had class at about 7 in the morning, and we haven't seen that brother since. But he got taught. That's how it's been. That's how we're supposed to be. And the same thing had happened. Like I said, I'm taught Edomites. I'm taught Chinese people. I'm taught people from the. I'm a Yax. I was born in Nigeria. When I first taught Rashwan didn't know he was an Israelite. Then he started telling me his personal life, his family history, and they weren't even from Nigeria. Yeah, they're from Europe, but he was from the families that got sent from Brazil back to Nigeria, and that's why he got a Portuguese surname.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know that.
Yeah, man. Then it would be through him that I would find out the majority of the black people in Cuba are Yoruba. Speaking it, they still do. Whenever they give you music lessons, the old culture, because around I've had a Yoruba music teacher, a Conga Latin teacher, one of them old Buena Vista dudes. He what do you call that? He sought political asylum here, and like a year before the year that I got here. And so, like I said, man, this is how you have to be. This is how you have to be, because it was through his conduct that I saw that this dude is an Israelite. And then I started learning more, and then all of a sudden I'm teaching people from Ghana, teaching people from Sierra Leone, teaching people from all over, teaching people from Suriname, teaching people from Holland, teaching people from Switzerland, from Sweden, from Finland, South Korea, all over the place. In Italy. That's how I ended up getting a spot for the store. I got kicked out the house that I was living at. They gave me no notice. You got to be gone in a week. I had to find a spot in a week. I went to a little small bed and breakfast place that was run by an Italian couple that had been there for about 3 years, named Josephina and Fabio. And all they spoke was Italian and Spanish. So I ended up in a joint, and we would be sitting up late at night. They would be asking me what I did. I was telling them about the Bible school and the business that we had to support it. And they were trying to get an idea of what I was talking about. And one day this lady brought a folio, I don't know how to say it in English, like a pamphlet, and it had an image of a booth that sold body oils, that sold incense sticks, that sold all type of stuff. She said to me like, I said, that's exactly what I do. I said, that's it. I said, plus or minus, give or take some of the actual items, that's it. She was like, oh, but I didn't know. They were already trying to get a small plazuela to open up a Mediterranean food restaurant. They ended up getting it. I'm out in Texas actually, and they're talking to Rylov's mother, trying to get in touch with me. As soon as I get back, they hit me up. Listen, man, we got this restaurant. We got a few locations. We want to know if you want to open up your store. That's how we got our store at our school. By me sitting up all night for 5 months talking to them in the middle of the night with a couple of Edomite Italians. Period, point blank. It turns out Fabio was a blues musician. Not a blues musician. He was a photographer for a blues musician, Michael Copeland, and a few other cats down in Louisiana and Texas, Mississippi, and Alabama. He was a professional photographer that toured with a bunch of black musicians. And so while he was down there for 15 years, he learned how to cook black people food, opened up a Mediterranean food restaurant and mixed it up with soul food and was the hottest shit on the street. That was the place where all the black people come and eat. Damn. And he played nothing but jazz and blues up in that house. So we were the only ones that he felt comfortable to offer a spot. He had the restaurant and the patio. We ended up with one spot. There were 2 other spots. He ended up giving them both to us. So we had the store, the school, and the storage room. But all of that because I sat up for 5 months with an Edomite couple talking all night. And out of that place, got taught hundreds of people over a 10-year period. Period, point blank. That's how it went down. So that's how I know you got, but coming directly out of New York and my upbringing, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have spent so much time. I wouldn't have spent, you know what I mean? I would have just gone to my room, and stuff like that. I wouldn't have passed any what we could call unnecessary time with the Gentiles. But I had gone through something else when I left New York before I came down here. And that was all the traveling that we did in California and Florida and Oklahoma and New Mexico and Texas and Massachusetts and Pennsylvania, all the places where I went and taught, where the Most High had to add things and add dimensions and pull things away from me. So that by the time I got to Texas, boom, it was a different story. And then from Texas, the Most High sent me down here. And so that's that. But there was a process that the Most High took me through that had to break me of certain bad habits that I learned at the school, because I wouldn't even like that before I came into the truth. I rolled with everybody. But the problem was we rolled too far. Chasing the Gentile women and doing all the crazy stuff in university. You're an athlete playing. I played in the NCAA for 3 years, so you know what comes with that. That's how it is for Black Israelite athletes playing in the NCAA. You get all that attention from women and different people, different cultures that you never got that type of attention from. So of course I had to be refined. Of course I had to be toned down. But then the Most High, I still, but I was growing up in the truth initially, kind of struggling with that habit of being able to be communicable with anybody. But then from the attitude of Israel behind you talking to the other nation. So the Most High got me out of there. The longest I've ever been in New York at any one time was 1 year and 3 months. Other than that, I spent the next longest period of time was 10 months. My whole 33-year experience consists of how much is 2 months? How much is 10 months? 10 months, 2 months, and a year and a half. I mean, sorry, a year and 3 months. My first time I was there a year and 3 months, and then the Most High sent us out on the road. We stayed out for a long time, came back, and I was there 2 more months and been on the road and stayed on the road. And then when Yaquab died, I got sent back and stayed there for 10 months. That's the longest I've ever been in New York. You understand? Because it wasn't about New York. It wasn't about ISUPK. It wasn't about, listen, it ain't about none of the schools. It's about the purpose that these places serve. That's what it's about. It's about the light of Christ shining through us as vessels. Okay, that was that. Hell, it's time. So, Adam, brother, you gotta forgive me, but the brother asked the question, and it opened the door just to some. Because really, Israel, we do need an attitude adjustment. Simple and plain. Israel we have to walk. We supposed to abandon us and our way and our carnal, fleshly impulses and inclinations, right? And we're supposed to grow. We're supposed to cleave to and grow in and mature in Yahweh Shai. That's what this is about. Yatas, you want to add anything before we bounce?
You just summed it up nicely there. The attitude adjustment, I like that.
Huh?
I said I like that. The attitude adjustment. Let go of the fleshly impulses or control them. Basically, just become a new person. Because that the new man that the scriptures talk about.
So thank you. We'll get back on track next week. The brother that's out there that asked that question, I hope you understood what we gave this evening concerning that. So these strangers that the Most High's prayers do here that Solomon spoke of were those that what? Like I said, the verse really for itself was self-explanatory. I mean, they would cleave to the Most High, but I wouldn't show more that that's how we're supposed to be. There's a way that we're supposed. How do they cleave to the Most High? But through our account, listen, they cleave to Israel, it said in Isaiah chapter 14. In Isaiah 56, it said that they're not supposed to consider or feel as though they've been separated from the people of the Lord. So what did that mean? The question is, how did they come to cleave to us in the first place? If they're cleaving to you because of you, then you're doing something wrong. They're supposed to cleave to us because of the light that shines forth from us, because of the transformation that actually, how could they be accepted by the Most High if they didn't make a transformation as well? Because it said they got to follow the Sabbath. They have to serve the Most High. Who's responsible for teaching them how to do that? That's us. And so that's what tonight was about, to answer the brother's question concerning that. So that even in a non-Israelite being in a position to have his prayer heard, that is determined by what? Them serving the Most High through his conduit, Israel. Period, point blank. It's about the sons and daughters of Israel. So I'm going to say shalom to y'all, brothers. And we will see each other. Yataza, don't forget we start 2 hours early tomorrow. And I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll see all the brothers in Texas on Friday, okay?
Okay.
All right. Shalom, everyone.
Shalom. Shalom. Shalom.
Shalom.